You think seeing patterns, dynamics, or truths that others miss means you're more perceptive or aware. Maslow discovered something more complex in his research on self-actualized individuals. He found that certain psychologically developed people did demonstrate what he called superior perception of reality. They recognized patterns, saw through facades, and perceived truths that most people filtered out or defended against. But he also documented that believing you see what others don't is one of the most dangerous psychological positions because it can indicate either genuine expanded perception or delusional thinking, paranoid projection, or grandiose narcissism. And people experiencing the latter patterns are often most convinced they're experiencing the former. The most critical part? Maslow identified specific ways to distinguish between accurate expanded perception and self-deceiving distortion. But most people who believe they see beyond others never apply these reality checks because their entire self-concept depends on being the one who sees what others miss. This isn't about whether expanded perception exists. It does. This is about the extreme difficulty of knowing whether what you're perceiving is accurate insight or convincing delusion, and why this question matters more than the perception itself. Not every person who believes they see what others don't is experiencing the same phenomenon. There's a critical difference between what Maslow documented as superior reality perception in self-actualized people, accurate perception of patterns, motivations, and dynamics that defensive people filter out, and several pathological states that feel identical from inside. Paranoid thinking that sees threats and conspiracies that aren't there, grandiose delusion that interprets random patterns as meaningful insights, projection that attributes your own psychology to others and believes you're seeing their truth, and cognitive biases that make you believe you're right when you're actually systematically wrong. The terrifying aspect is that all these states feel like seeing clearly while others are blind. The person with paranoid delusions believes they're seeing real threats others are naive about. The person projecting believes they're reading others accurately. The person with superior perception also believes they're seeing accurately. From inside, they're indistinguishable. What appears as seeing what others ignore from your own perspective might be accurate perception or might be systematic distortion, and you cannot determine which from inside the experience itself. Real understanding requires external validation that most people convinced of their superior perception never seek, because seeking it would threaten their self-concept. In this video, I'm going to reveal what Maslow actually documented about superior reality perception, how he distinguished it from delusional thinking, and most critically, how to know whether what you believe you're seeing is accurate versus distorted. You'll discover specific reality checks that separate genuine expanded perception from convincing delusion, why people experiencing each pattern are equally convinced they're right, and what genuine superior perception actually costs versus what delusional thinking promises. These are insights from humanistic psychology with heavy emphasis on the dangers of believing you see beyond others without rigorous reality testing. By the end, you'll understand how to assess your own perceptual claims honestly rather than just assuming you're the one who sees clearly. This isn't a video validating your belief that you see what others miss or confirming you're more aware than people around you. This is psychology explaining when expanded perception is real versus when it's delusion, with particular emphasis on why most people can't tell the difference and what that means for evaluating your own perceptual claims. This video is for people who believe they see patterns, truths, or dynamics others don't recognize and want honest assessment rather than flattery about whether the perception is accurate. Critical warning. If this video makes you feel confirmed in your superior perception without examining the reality testing criteria, that itself is strong evidence you're experiencing the delusional pattern rather than the accurate one. If you're ready for rigorous examination rather than validation, keep watching. Think about something you believe you see clearly that most people around you don't recognize. Maybe a pattern in relationships, a truth about society, a dynamic in your workplace, or an insight about human nature. Notice what happens when you try to explain this to others and they don't see it. You think, I might be wrong, or I might be seeing a pattern that isn't there? Or do you think, they can't see it because they're less aware, more defensive, or operating at lower consciousness? For most people convinced they have superior perception, it's the latter. Every instance where others don't confirm your perception becomes evidence that you see beyond them rather than evidence that you might be wrong. This is a core problem. Genuine superior perception and delusional thinking both involve seeing things others don't, and both create situations where others disagree with you. The patterns are externally identical. What distinguishes them is your relationship to the possibility of being wrong and your willingness to reality test. Maslow understood that self-actualized people with genuine superior perception maintain profound humility about their perceptions, constantly reality tested against external feedback, and held their insights tentatively rather than certainty. People with delusional thinking did the opposite. They were certain they were right, interpreted disagreement as others' limitations, and never genuinely questioned whether they might be systematically wrong. The psychological way to believing you see what others ignore without rigorous reality testing is that you can construct entire belief systems based on perceptions that feel absolutely true, but are actually projections, biases, or delusions. And you'll never discover this because you've made disagreement into evidence that you're right. Maslow's observations about superior reality perception must be understood carefully because they're easily misinterpreted. He documented that self-actualized people showed several perceptual characteristics. They were more accurate at judging character and detecting inauthenticity. They recognized patterns in behavior and dynamics that others missed. They perceived their own and others' motivations more clearly. They were less distorted by their own needs and defenses, and they saw through social facades and pretense more readily. But, and this is crucial, he also found these people maintain constant awareness that perception is fallible. They sought feedback and correction. They held insights tentatively, and they were the first to acknowledge when they misperceived something. Their superior perception came with epistemic humility, not with certainty. The clinical psychologist Scott Barry Kaufman studied healthy personality and transcendence, finding that the healthiest people show what he calls intellectual humility, recognition of limits of their own knowledge and perception combined with openness to being wrong. People claiming special insight who lack this humility are typically experiencing something other than healthy perception. The psychiatrist Carl Jaspers distinguished between genuine insight and delusional conviction. Genuine insight, he found, remains open to modification with new evidence. Delusional conviction is held with absolute certainty immune to counter evidence. This distinction is diagnostic. If you're certain you're seeing correctly and no evidence could convince you otherwise, you're in delusional territory regardless of whether your perception happens to be accurate. The psychologist David Dunning studied what's now called the Dunning-Kruger effect. People who are least competent at something are often most confident in their ability because they lack the metacognitive capacity to recognize their incompetence. This applies to perception. People worse at reading situations, understanding others, or recognizing patterns are often most confident they're seeing clearly because they can't recognize what they're missing. Conversely, people with genuine expertise and superior perception often feel less confident because they're aware of complexity and uncertainty. The neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky studied stress and perception, documenting that chronic stress, trauma, and certain psychological conditions systematically distort perception. You see threats that aren't there, misinterpret neutral situations as hostile, and detect patterns where only randomness exists. People in these states are absolutely convinced their perception is accurate because the distortion happens at neurological level below conscious awareness. The philosopher Karl Popper emphasized that beliefs should be falsifiable. You should be able to specify what evidence would prove you wrong. If you can't, you're not making empirically testable claim, but rather holding unfalsifiable belief that might be delusion. But here's what Maslow actually documented about distinguishing genuine superior perception from delusion, and why this distinction is so critical. First criterion, accuracy validated by others over time. Genuine superior perception means you're accurate, not just that you believe you're seeing clearly. If you consistently perceive accurately, others eventually recognize this even if they initially disagreed. Your insights prove true, your predictions manifest, your understanding is validated by outcomes. If you're consistently wrong but remain convinced you're seeing clearly while others are blind, you're delusional. Reality test. Do your perceptions typically prove accurate when verified? Do people who initially disagreed eventually recognize you were right? Or do you stay convinced you're right despite continued disagreement and lack of validation? Second criterion, specificity and testability rather than vagueness. Genuine insights are specific enough to test. I perceive that this person will betray trust in specific contexts can be tested. I see negative energy around this person cannot. Delusional thinking often involves vague, untestable claims that can't be proven wrong. Reality test. Can your perceptions be stated specifically enough that they could be proven wrong? Do you make testable claims or vague pronouncements? Third criterion. Openness to being wrong versus defensive certainty. Genuine superior perception includes awareness that perception is fallible and openness to correction. People with genuine insight actively seek feedback and adjust when wrong. Delusional thinking defends itself from correction. You're certain you're right and interpret any disagreement as others' limitations rather than considering you might be wrong. Reality test. When others disagree with your perception, do you genuinely consider you might be wrong? Or do you automatically assume they're less aware? 4 criterion. Consistency across observers versus unique to you. If you're perceiving accurately, others with developed perception will generally see the same things you do, even if most people don't. Accurate perception converges. Multiple perceptive people notice similar patterns. Delusion is typically unique. Only you see what you claim to see, and even other perceptive people don't confirm it. Reality test. Do other people you respect as perceptive confirm your observations? Or are you always the only one who sees what you see? 5th criterion. Humility about limits versus grandiosity about perception. Genuine superior perception comes with awareness of what you don't see, can't know, and might be wrong about. Delusional thinking comes with certainty that you see clearly while others are blind. Maslow found that self-actualized people were acutely aware of complexity and limitation of their understanding. Reality test. Are you aware of what you don't see and can't know? Or are you certain you see while others don't? 6th criterion. Perception serves growth versus serves ego. Genuine superior perception is used to understand reality better, navigate situations more effectively, or help others. Delusional thinking serves ego. It makes you feel special, superior, or confirms you're more aware than others. Reality test. What does believing you see beyond others do for you psychologically? If it serves mainly to feel superior or special, it's likely more about ego than accuracy. 7 criterion. Willingness to subject perception to rigorous testing. People with genuine superior perception welcome attempts to test their accuracy because they want to know if they're right. People with delusional thinking avoid testing because unconsciously they know testing might reveal they're wrong. Reality test. Are you willing to rigorously test whether your perceptions are accurate? Or do you avoid situations where your accuracy could be objectively evaluated? The transformation that occurs when you apply these reality checks honestly is potentially devastating to your self-concept, but essential for developing genuine rather than delusional perception. Remember that conviction you're seeing what others miss, that sense of being more aware, that interpretation of disagreement as evidence of others' limitations. When you rigorously reality test these beliefs, you often discover that your perception is more distorted than you believed, that your insights are less accurate than you assumed, and that your sense of superior perception was serving ego needs rather than reflecting genuine perceptual accuracy. This is uncomfortable but crucial recognition. Your belief that you see beyond others might be accurate. Some people do have superior perception, but it might also be projection, cognitive bias, paranoid thinking, or narcissistic grandiosity. And from inside your own experience, you cannot tell the difference without external validation and rigorous reality testing. Understanding this creates several necessary shifts. You develop epistemic humility, recognition that you might be wrong about what you believe you're seeing clearly. You start seeking external validation rather than assuming disagreement means others are limited. You hold your perceptions tentatively rather than with certainty, remaining open to correction. You distinguish between perceptions that have been validated and ones that remain your subjective interpretation. You recognize that feeling certain doesn't make you right. Delusional thinking also feels certain. You examine what your belief in superior perception does for your ego and whether that's contaminating your actual perceptual accuracy. You commit to rigorous reality testing rather than just trusting your internal sense of seeing clearly. Now here's where this becomes practically useful through specific assessment of your own perceptual claims. For each thing you believe you see that others don't, ask, have my similar perceptions in the past proven accurate when eventually tested? If yes, that increases probability this perception is accurate. If no, or if you avoid ever testing accuracy, that suggests possible systematic distortion. Can I state this perception specifically enough that it could be proven wrong? If yes, and you're willing to test it, that increases credibility. If it's vague or untestable, that's red flag for delusion. Do other perceptive people I respect confirm this observation? If yes, that validates perception. If no one else sees it, even perceptive people, that strongly suggests you might be wrong. When others disagree, do I genuinely consider I might be wrong, or do I automatically assume they're less aware? Your answer reveals whether you're approaching perception with humility or with defensive certainty. Am I aware of what I don't see, can't know, and might be wrong about? Or am I certain I see the truth? Certainty is red flag. Awareness of limits is green flag. What does believing I see beyond others do for my ego? If it makes you feel special or superior, that contamination increases likelihood perception is distorted by ego needs. Am I willing to rigorously test this perception's accuracy? If yes, and you actively seek testing, that indicates healthy relationship with perception. If you avoid testing, that suggests unconscious knowledge you might be wrong. Apply these questions to your specific perceptual claims. If you score well, your perceptions typically prove accurate. Others confirm them. You remain humble and open to correction. You likely do have superior perception in certain domains. If you score poorly, your perceptions rarely get validated. No one else confirms them. You're certain despite disagreement. You likely have systematic perceptual distortion disguised as insight. Most people fall somewhere between, with some accurate perceptions and some distorted ones. The skill is distinguishing which is which rather than assuming all your perceptions are accurate. Here's additional reality check. Maslow found that people with genuine superior perception experienced it as burden rather than as achievement. They wished they could unsee certain patterns, dynamics, or truths because awareness brought responsibility and sometimes pain. They didn't feel superior. They felt lonely and sometimes wished they were less aware. If your experience of seeing beyond others makes you feel special, chosen, or superior, that strong indicator you're experiencing ego inflation rather than genuine superior perception. Genuine superior perception feels more like weight than like badge of honor. Additionally, genuine superior perception is domain-specific. You might have accurate perception in interpersonal dynamics, but not in politics. You might read facial expressions well, but misread situations. Delusional thinking tends to claim global superior perception. I see through everything while others are generally blind. If you believe you have superior perception across all domains, that's almost certainly grandiosity rather than genuine capability. Here's what the research on perception and delusion ultimately reveals. Humans are extraordinarily good at convincing themselves they're seeing accurately even when they're systematically wrong. Cognitive biases, motivated reasoning, confirmation bias, and defensive projection all operate below conscious awareness, making your perceptions feel absolutely true even when they're highly distorted. You cannot trust the subjective feeling of seeing clearly, because delusional thinking feels identical to accurate perception from inside. The only way to know whether your perception is accurate is through external validation. Do others confirm it? Does it prove true over time? Can it survive rigorous testing? Without this external reality testing, you're just trusting your subjective experience, which is notoriously unreliable. If you're reading this and feeling that you do see what others ignore, the critical question isn't whether you're right. It's whether you're willing to rigorously test whether you're right. Are you willing to specify your perceptions clearly enough that they could be proven wrong? Are you willing to seek feedback from people who might disagree? Are you willing to track your accuracy over time honestly? Are you willing to consider that some or all of what you believe you're seeing might be projection or delusion? If you're unwilling to do this testing, that itself is diagnostic. You're protecting belief in superior perception rather than actually caring whether your perception is accurate. If you are willing, then you're in position to develop genuine perceptual accuracy rather than just believing you already have it. The path forward requires radical epistemic humility, recognizing that you might be systematically wrong about things you feel certain about, that your perception is always partial and potentially distorted, and that other people's disagreement might indicate your error rather than their limitation. This humility doesn't mean you can't trust your perception at all. It means you hold it tentatively, test it rigorously, and remain open to correction. Combined with this humility, you develop practices of reality testing. You make specific predictions and track accuracy. You seek feedback from people who might see differently. You notice when your perceptions don't match outcomes and adjust. You distinguish between perceptions that have been validated and those that remain untested interpretations. What Maslow's work ultimately reveals: superior perception exists and is characteristic of psychological health and development. But believing you have superior perception while lacking the humility, reality testing, and openness to correction that genuine superior perception requires is itself evidence that you don't have it. Real perceptual clarity comes with awareness of perceptual limits. Real insight comes with epistemic humility. Real ability to see patterns comes with constant questioning of whether you're seeing accurately. If you're certain you see what others miss and you interpret all disagreement as others' limitations, you're almost certainly experiencing some form of distorted perception rather than genuine clarity. The most perceptive people are the ones most aware they might be wrong. If your experience of seeing beyond others makes you feel superior, special, or more aware than people around you, that feeling itself is the strongest evidence that what you're experiencing isn't genuine superior perception, but rather ego inflation, defensive grandiosity, or delusional thinking. Genuine superior perception feels more like burden than achievement, comes with profound humility, and increases compassion rather than contempt for people who don't see what you see. If that doesn't describe your experience, you need to seriously examine whether what you believe is clear sight might actually be systematic blindness disguised as insight. In the next video, I'm going to reveal what actually develops genuine perceptual accuracy, the practices that improve your ability to see clearly versus the psychological traps that create an illusion of seeing while actually distorting perception. Until then, reality test your perceptual claims rigorously rather than just trusting that what feels true is true. The gap between feeling certain and being accurate is where delusion lives, and only rigorous external validation reveals which side you're actually on. Subscribe if you want psychology that prioritizes epistemic humility over comfortable beliefs about your own perception, that provides rigorous reality testing frameworks rather than flattering validation, and that supports genuine perceptual accuracy rather than delusional confidence disguised as insight.